talk to me.
Information, news, and entertainment on demand.
WSRadio.com.
Welcome to This Week in Marketing, brought to you by the San Diego chapter of the American Marketing Association.
Thanks for tuning in. I'm Wade Taylor, and I'm happy to be hosting this episode of the show. This is part of an ongoing series of programs we're doing where we're meeting the different companies here in San Diego that are part of our marketing community and just doing a little bit of a deep dive, getting a feel for what they do so we all know who's out there to support us and support the marketing company writ large, or the marketing community, I should say. And an example of somebody that does support the marketing community is Comet Creative. I'm joined today by Nanette Newbury. She's one of the principals and creative director there. And Nanette, you've been a long-time supporter of the San Diego AMA, as I understand.
Yes, I have. Is that good?
Yeah. And so go ahead and move in a little bit closer to the mic.
There you go.
And so we're delighted to have you on, find out what you guys are doing, continue that ongoing support. And we're going to focus today's conversation a lot around branding, but especially as it affects the world of architecture, engineering, home building, construction, because that's an area that you guys have a lot of expertise in, and it's always fascinating to see how theory plays out in the real world. And so, again, thank you for joining me today, Nanette. Now, within that community, right, that we're discussing, they're dealing with a service that's fairly common. Everybody needs someplace to live. And I imagine it's a fairly saturated market, lots of competition, lots of people trying to fulfill that need. And I would imagine standing out is kind of, or is extremely important. And so can you talk to us a little bit about how in that world they need to embrace the importance of an identifiable brand?
Yes, thank you, Wade, for having me on today. And the AEC, which is Architects, Engineers, and Builders, has been around since the beginning of time, actually. And in San Diego and nationally, the AEC market has been challenged with how to stand apart. And it's not so much, home builders are important, but there's so many different segments of the building industry, all the way from civil engineering to building, huge bridges, skyscrapers, all the way down to homes. So, it's a very, very deep market. And in the beginning, when relationships were built with a handshake, then, the brand for these markets, for these different stakeholders, were more about, who you know, what you know, and then how you do it. There really wasn't all that much positioning. Mm-hmm. And kind of with the internet coming, around in the 90s, if you had a small firm of, let's say, 10 people, you could look like a firm that had 100 people. Yeah. And so it's been difficult for this industry to embrace unless they were like, $100 million plus company to really position themselves differently than, the girl or guy next door.
Right. It's kind of interesting because they need to embrace both the new and the old. With the new, one of the things the internet did was broke geographic exclusivity. I'm now not the only store in town. I've got 20,000 competitors online, and we're all a mouse click away. So that makes reputation more important. But also it's recognizing that that's how branding historically started, or I should say how it historically evolved. Branding started out, as we think maybe a cattle brand or something where it was a mark on something, right? And now
it was actually over 2,000 years ago when brand first kind of came on the scene, and people would be putting their mark on pretty much things that they owned, like even water jugs, food containers, cattle, of course, and even slaves. And then probably around the mid-1800s is when brands started meaning buy me. Rather than I own this, it's more like buy this or buy that.
Well, just that brand developed a reputation.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
It's like, here's an identifiable seal, but people started equating, wait, there's some value, there's more value to some of these seals than others. And suddenly we've got competition, we got reputation. And so I just find it fascinating how kind of form follows function or whatever. That's how us as a society had the concept of brand play out. And then again, now with the internet, we're doubling down on that. And, you really need for somebody to get a glimpse of what you are, but be able to quickly infer or get a glimpse of what you do. How about if I say it that way? But quickly infer what you are.
Yes, and it's difficult. It's pretty easy if you have a product. Let's say that you're buying a golf club, a tailor-made golf club. You can find differentiators there through the technology and even through the pros that use the product. But let's say that you're doing professional services, civil, structural, architecture, and there's 100 great architects right in your neighborhood. So professional services, B2B is I wouldn't say it's more difficult, but you have to maybe do a deeper dive in really what differentiates between, one service from another company. And with that said, it's also difficult to, it's not difficult, but sometimes if a company is too close to it, I know we went through a rebrand a couple of years ago, and, we do this every day, and it's like eating mashed potatoes every day.
Right.
It's like, how do you get a different flavor in there? And it's hard sometimes to see, what that differentiators are and even what that positioning is.
Right. And, so in terms of as an identifier, brands, if they're handled properly, will have an emotional connotation. They'll be imbued with deeper meaning, and any company is well served if they've got something that their clients can look at and immediately have that kind of emotional, reputational developed bond. But it also needs to be appropriate, because a lot of people will go out and do things for attention. I see this in our world of marketing, say with social media, where people are told, I need to do a Facebook post, I need to do a blog, and they'll do stuff, and you're like, yeah, but what's that got to do with anything, right?
Exactly. What is a return on investment and the time? And social media is a perfect example of that. And even with brand, oftentimes marketers have, and I think we're going to talk about this a little bit later, but marketers in AEC that are within companies sometimes have a difficult time explaining to leadership about what the return on investment is. And we're going to talk about that.
You're right.
Yeah. And so it's important.
The value.
Yeah, the value. And there are a lot of statistics out there now about what happens when a company is well branded versus not.
And part of that is not just going out and getting recognition, but positioning.
Absolutely,
right?
yeah.
If I'm an architecture company, it might be fascinating to donate to the local hip-hop youth dance group, but that's got nothing to do with my business, right? And so I need to make sure that the branding things I do reinforce. And with just a couple of minutes left, it's also about making sure as I'm doing it, I'm recognizing and creating my unique personality, right?
Yes, there's about 4 parts to brand strategy, and one of those is the personality. That's kind of the second thing that we look at. And you usually look at what the personas are. And Carl Jung, obviously a Swiss psychologist in the early 1900s, came up with the personas. And, every company, every individual has there's basically 12 personas. Now, we work with about 50 different personas. And that really helps you talk to your audience in the way that they need to hear. How to be the best influencer is if you really understand what that persona is.
Right, and it has to be authentic to you.
Totally, yeah.
So with about 2 minutes left, again, the purpose of this first segment was to really reinforce in people's minds that branding is critical. This is the shorthand for your company and the experience your client's going to get. And in today's internet diverse, we got a million things coming at us. They're coming at us at the speed of light, literally with the fiber optics. And so branding or conscious branding is really necessary to stand out. So let me give you the final minute or so to talk specifically to those people in the architecture, engineering, and construction industry to drive that point home.
Well, it also talks about, you mentioned positioning, and one of the 4 elements of a brand, and this is a question we get a lot, like, what is a brand? Well, it's not a logo, but it's really figuring out your position, a positioning statement, like why do you exist? What are your goals? Oftentimes leadership is not in alignment with this. And then what is your mission and vision and values? That formulates part of that strategy as well. And then you have your visual brand, which is, of course, what does it look like? And then what do you say? That's also part of the brand. And then the 4th thing is bringing it to the staff.
Right,
integrating it into the culture of the company.
Yeah, getting ready to buy in. But again, it definitely has to start with what your company is in that vision, because the logo will be an artistic representation of whatever that kind of feeling is, and embrace whatever that is. One of the classic things I always think about is Dick's Last Resort, right? There's lots of restaurants in town, and some of them are known for their fine, cuisine, right? But some are
funny.
more, some are more atmosphere. But if you've not been to Dick's Last Resort, they're there to insult you. It's about that experience, and I doubt if anybody's really doing a comparison of their burger versus another burger, because it's not about the burger. So the point in closing is that's okay if that's what your brand's about. And we'll be back in a moment to talk more marketing and branding with Nanette Newberry of Comet Creative. Back in a moment here on This Week in Marketing with the San Diego MA, powered by WSRadio.com.
A podcast or radio show on WS Radio is a great way to create content marketing. Turn prospects into customers into raving fans. Contact Wade at WSRadio.com or call 866-WS-RADIO.
Hi, this is Rob Barnett, CEO and founder of VinVillage.com and the Wine and Dine Show on Vin Village Radio. Do you have a wine, event, product, or service to promote? Then contact VinVillage.com to reach thousands of wine lovers across the country. VinVillage connects like-minded wine enthusiasts with unique and exclusive wines, events, products, and services. To learn more, contact us on VinVillage.com. VinVillage is where wine lovers connect.
I raised $8,000 to build schools for South African children. After realizing how many people go hungry in San Diego, I now volunteer at a food pantry.
I'm spending the next year doing volunteer projects across 3 countries and helping in ways they designate to be the most helpful.
The WorldLink program at the Joan B. Kroc Institute for Peace and Justice recognizes the potential of youth as agents of social change. Learn how you can help youth become a generation of leaders in action at peace.sandiego.edu.
One person has the power to change the world, impact millions of lives, and leave a legacy for lifetimes to come. That person is you. In the New York Times bestseller, What is Your What? Steve Olsher, award-winning author and founder of the Reinvention Workshop, reveals his proven process that has helped thousands of men and women discover, share, and monetize the one thing they were born to do. Grab your free copy now at www.whatisyourwhat.com/free. That's www.whatisyourwhat.com/free.
Take a break from politics. Tune in and learn something. WS Radio shows are worth your time and are filled with tips and advice. Add us to your lunch routine and we'll give you a meal for your mind.
You take your smartphone almost everywhere you go. Now WSRadio.com can be there too. Search WS Radio in the Play Store for your Android devices or iTunes for Apple and download the WS Radio application. WSRadio.com on your phone and in your ear everywhere you go. Download the WS Radio application. Do it now. It's very easy. WSRadio.com.
Small businesses are the lifeblood of America's economy. Every Thursday, SBA Radio interviews industry professionals and is dedicated to provide small businesses with timely insights and innovations. Visit www.sbaradio.us for details.